Hello, AP World History students. Welcome to your first screencast for this year and this year's study of world history. The word epics is an acronym that's used to describe the 5 themes of history. Now, it is absolutely essential that with every civilization that we discuss, that you will be able to address something about each of these 5 themes of history. So the purpose of this screencast is to give you an opportunity to listen to my description of epics, to take some extra notes on them if you would like on the green cardstock that you received, and or the epics chart that you received, and just for me to explain in a little bit more detail what each of the themes stands for. Now, economics, that's the E. We'll begin this course by looking at how a surplus of agriculture, as well as pastoral production, which is the domestication of livestock and animals that can be used for food, or draft animals that can be used for plowing and such, created a surplus of food so that economies could develop. People could specialize their labor. They could become potters or they could become weavers. Economics also includes a concept called the tribute system, where, for example, a lord in Europe might have and provide protection from invaders in exchange for crops that a peasant might provide. Economic history also refers to how trade and commerce take place. So let's say that I'm a really good potter and you're a really good weaver, then we could trade with one another and eventually currency would come into use. Here's a picture of our currency that we currently use in the US. There's George Washington, a nice $1 bill. And currency comes in many forms. Some of the better, some early forms of currency in Africa, for example, were cowrie shells, and in other parts of the world, silver and gold have long been standards of currency because they have an inherent value in them. Economic history also includes types of labor systems, which might include slavery, which might include debt peonage, which might include wage labor. And it also, in economic history, we'll look at theories of economics, such as capitalism, mercantilism, communism, etc. P stands for politics, state building, expansion, and governance. Now I have here, and again, I cannot see what you can see, so I don't know if you can see this guy, but this is a terracotta warrior scale model. Now the terracotta warriors, some of you might be familiar with, were actually found in a tomb surrounding, or in a very large area underground surrounding the tomb of Qin Shi Huangdi. Qin Shi Huangdi was a warlord in China in what's called the period of the Warring States. He brought together China under one system, and that system was called legalism. Now, legalism is the rule of the man. The type of leadership there, very autocratic. And if you didn't do what the man wanted you to do, in this case, Qin Shi Huangdi, well, it's likely that you could lose a hand or a life. Political history also includes use of military. Of course, militaries have been around in various capacities for centuries. The Roman military was particularly widespread and actually led to the Roman Empire. And of course, the empire building is important in political history as well. The concept of nations and nationalism, political systems that are based on one's shared national heritage, and even the drawing of borders really became important about 100 years ago. And then revolts and revolutions such as the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Haitian Revolution are all political history as well. I think interaction with the environment is one of the really interesting themes of history. Basically, what it has to do is how our geography impacts our history. The picture you see here is a picture of the Sahel. The Sahel is a region between the Sahara Desert and the rainforests of Central Africa. As the weather warmed up in Africa, as climate change occurred, a Bantu migration occurred from West Africa, from the areas of the Sahara that were becoming hot and dry, to East Africa. And so, as you can imagine, as people migrate, they bring along with them ideas about culture, about religion, about technology. They bring plants and they bring animals. Demography refers to the demographic makeup of a society. So, in other words, how old the society is. What is the average age? What is the average life expectancy? And other themes or other ideas that fall under the I, or the interaction between humans and the environment. Of course, is disease. We see Ebola as a disease that has had various breakouts in parts of Africa, and there's a concern the disease will spread, but historically the bubonic plague spread from China and into Europe and was devastating. It decimated the population. Natural resources and the extraction of natural resources is an important aspect of interaction with the environment. When I was in China, also, I bought tea. Now, the tea in China is one of the natural resources that has been in high demand for many, many years in China. And the English, think about the English without their tea. Well, they loved it, and they got it from China. Um, Patterns of settlement really depend vastly on the environment. For example, in Mongolia to this day, there's still people that live nomadic lives, or maybe they live in very small settled communities. In some areas of the world, we have huge cities that have developed. And then technologies arise from the natural resources. This piece of silk here actually also comes from China. And the Chinese, hundreds of years ago, developed technologies based on the use of their silkworms, and they created the finest silk and fabrics that the world really has ever known. And again, that drove much of the economy of China. So the interaction between humans and the environments is a very important aspect of world history, often overlooked, but very important. Culture refers basically to religions, belief systems, philosophies, and ideologies. So the picture that you see here is of the Hagia Sophia. This is in Istanbul, Turkey. Now, Istanbul used to be called Constantinople, and that was named after Emperor Constantine from the Roman Empire. The building here was first constructed as a church, a Christian church. When the Muslims captured Constantinople in the 1400s, they renamed it Istanbul, and they converted the church into a mosque. And as we look at the major belief systems of the world, we'll try to understand what they believe about how one should live their lives here, what they believe about the afterlife, etc. Now, culture, here's another example of culture. This is a copy of a rune stone that I saw in Denmark, and these are inscriptions. So writing is very much a part of culture and the spread of culture and ideas. And then also on this rune stone, you may or may not be able to see it, but there is an etching of a symbol of Christ. And this stone is a national, the real stone, not my little fake plastic one here, but the real one is a World Heritage Site because it's believed it is where Christianity the first Vikings were converted to Christianity. So this is an example of culture. So through the arts and architecture, literature, writing, science, and technology, we study cultural history. Social structures, development and transformation. Originally, many societies were egalitarian. That means that they were equal. But over a period of time, gender roles developed and became more patriarchal, which meant the rule of the father. In each of the societies we look at, we'll try to understand what the different gender roles are, the importance of kinship, whether or not, a son would get the inheritance, maybe a daughter would get an inheritance. We'll look at things like racial and ethnic constructions, which are really artificially created. They're not something that's an inherent like genetic difference in humans, but rather artificial constructions based on certain characteristics or practices. And we'll also look at social and economic classes. The diagram that you see here is a diagram of pharaohic Egypt and the social classes there, with the pharaoh at the top, the pharaoh believed to be an offspring of the gods. And of course, when you have the pharaohs and offspring of the gods, the high priests and nobles are going to be right below the pharaoh. Now, if you have a culture such as the Chinese that didn't really have a formal religion, the emperor would be at the top, but perhaps nobles would be on the second run. But rung of the social class, but they wouldn't have priests because they didn't have a religious system. So we'll look at the social and economic classes for each of the civilizations that we discuss. So in summary, I'm going to flip back to the first slide here. Make sure that you can understand what each of those terms, each of those letters stands for, and even think for yourself, what kind of economic system do you live in the United States right now? What kind of political system do we have? How do we interact with the environment? What is our culture? And what is our social classes like here in America? And that might help you to really uh, understand or come up with a good example of how epics can apply to your life. Again, we'll be using these themes throughout the course. Make sure you know what each letter stands for. Make sure you know how you can apply them into the study of the civilizations that we'll be looking at. Thank you. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you the next time. Goodbye.